Greetings, friends. For this episode of Twisted Children's Tales, I have an unbelievably special treat in store for you. This will be a much more disturbing tale than you may be used to. You've been warned. The young boy clenched his mother's worn old nightgown as the banging on the door got louder. His older brother, a strapping young man, stood in front of her, ready to fight for his family's lives. It was dark, but he could see his brother's back, poised valiantly and looking like a true hero. The old, hollow wooden door, bitten by termites and withered by years of harsh seasons, could not stand much more of the beating. The door finally gave way, and the dark silhouettes of 3 bandits rushed in like water through a broken dam. The boy cringed with each splintering crack of their old floorboards as the men trampled the few belongings the family had. A dusty wool rug, a small stack of clay plates, and his mother's most prized possession, a tarnished brass bell left behind as a keepsake from her late husband. The boy whimpered as his mother swept him up, kissing his forehead firmly before placing him into the closet. He strained his eyes to see through a crack in the door. In the confusion, he heard the impact of his brother's fists against the flesh of the intruders. Bones buckled under the force of his well-trained hands. As the boy peeked into the crack, a fast glint of moonlight reflected off something before he could realize what it was. The next sound he heard was of his dear brother, crying out in agony before slumping to the ground. His mother screamed at the top of her lungs, charging at the men, her wispy, malnourished frame visible only by the faded whiteness of her gown. The boy's consciousness waned as he heard the voice of his mother crying softly, weeping for her sons. He awakened to see golden rays of sunlight pouring in through the window. On the floor, the naked bodies of his mother and brother. His whole world shattered before his eyes in mere moments. Stupefied, he slowly made his way out of the closet, stepping over his loved ones in complete disbelief. He walked to the door to leave, planning never to return, but something caught his eye before he made it out. It was his father's bell. He sluggishly picked it up and continued on his way, tucking it into the pocket of his ratty, woolen coat. The boy took to begging in the streets. Nowhere to go at night. No mother to love him. No bed to sleep in. No brother to protect him. No father to guide him. People stared at him as they walked on by, carrying loaves of barley bread and leading sheep down the road to do their business. The town was famous for its fine wool. Every day, he followed the herds through town to pick up stray tufts of the precious commodity, left behind by the sheep as they bumped and scraped by each other. His hope was to gather enough to sell or trade for a meal that didn't come from the unwanted refuse the shop owners threw to the birds. He looked off into the distance with longing eyes, the gleaming spires of the castle bathed in a heavenly glow. It was the home of the master and his wife, constructed at the very heart of the city, a place where he knew he could never step foot. One night, as he lay under the stars, trying to sleep despite the pains of his empty stomach, the boy's eyes were lit up by mysterious lights in the sky. He watched on as fire streaked across the horizon, illuminating the pitch-black night. The boy's heart swelled with hope, knowing that his chance had finally come. The village slept as he ran as fast as he could to get to the fields where the fires were headed. Tears of joy flew from his eyes, whipped away by the wind as he practically took flight to get there. His mind echoed with his one true wish. Please, save me from this life. The boy finally made it to the clearing, overlooking a deep crater called the Master's Valley, a great scar in the earth, said to be the place where the master made a wish of his own long ago. The boy turned his gaze back to the sky as the fires went their separate ways, spreading far and wide on their way to other lands, only one remaining on course for the valley. The crackling ball of flame plummeted to the earth below, the blinding light reflecting in the boy's eyes as it made impact, knocking him off his feet. When his vision cleared, a large, dark figure stood before him and spoke. "Are you my master?" The boy acknowledged with clear hesitation. "Yes." "Very well, my lord. I am pleased to serve you." Faint of heart, the boy collapsed down into the grass, and the creature curled up around him, its soft fur enveloping his body in warmth and comfort. His sleep that night was the best he'd ever known. The next morning, the boy awoke to his first clear view of his granted wish, an abnormally large, robust and healthy male sheep. The animal stared at him with slatted eyes. "Good morning, master." The boy liked the feeling of being called master. He tied his father's bell around the sheep's neck, and it winced. He could see that it was unpleasant, so he untied it and fastened it to the sheep's leg instead. "Ah, much better, master. Thank you. Won't you please follow me?" The boy nodded in bewilderment, got up, and followed the sheep into town. The two made their way to a shearing shop, where the sheep spoke again. "Tell the shop owner that you will trade my entire coat for a pair of shears." The boy did as he was told. When the shop owner saw the sheep, he was immediately stricken by its beauty and offered to purchase the animal. The boy refused. "No, sir. This is my dear friend. He isn't for sale." The black sheep smiled up at the boy. The shop owner made quick work of shearing the sheep, and then gave the boy the tool he asked for. The man's face was alight with glee as he scooped up the rich bundle of shining black wool and brought it into his storage room. The sheep spoke again. "Follow me." The boy followed his friend around to the back of the store. "Now, master, please ask me if I have any wool." Black sheep: "Have you any wool?" "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full." The boy's eyes widened as the sheep grew back its wool in a matter of seconds, the new coat even more beautiful than the first. The sheep led the boy back into the city to make his next sale, but the next time, they traded the wool for coins. Every time the sheep was sheared, it produced 3 bags worth of the highest quality wool anyone in the village had ever seen. Even with the 2/3 tax demanded by the master for himself and his wife, the boy soon made enough money to purchase his own small, but very fancy home in the city. Unlike where he grew up, his home was furnished with chairs and tables, elegant dyed rugs and curtains for his windows. He had fresh food every day from the markets, and even his prized sheep ate like a king. Even with all this, the boy still gazed up at the castle towers at the heart of the city. The two lived this way for quite a while, selling the wool, paying their tax, and living a life where the boy had almost everything he wanted. One day, when the boy was a bit older, the master descended from his perch to finally find out where the amazing wool had come from. The master couldn't believe it when he heard that it was just a boy and 1 sheep. He went from shop to shop, asking how to find this mysterious pair, and happened upon them while they were out making their deliveries. The boy was awestruck when he saw the master. He had never laid eyes on him before, but he knew who it was right away. The master recognized the sheep's black wool, and took the boy into his arms, lifting him up like a father would his own son. The boy's mind was flooded with memories of his past, missing the embrace of his father. The master declared to the marveling onlookers that the boy was now a member of the royal court, and would be joining him in the castle that very day. Dumbfounded, the boy looked at the sheep, who smiled gently back at him. The pair was escorted by royal guard all the way to the center of the city. Along the way, they heard the guards chattering about the master wanting the black sheep for his own. The black sheep heard this and looked up at the boy again, his eyes suddenly tinged with a hint of worry, almost pleading, but the boy smiled back, easing his mind. Though he felt confident that all would be well, he cautioned the boy, reaching out into his thoughts. "Master, I don't want to belong to anyone but you. I was called to this world to serve you alone. Please." They spent days exploring the castle grounds and enjoying the lavish feasts that were a daily part of life there. During a banquet, the master coaxed the boy into telling the secret of how his sheep could produce so much wool. The boy admitted, "All you have to do is ask." After a while, though, the boy realized that his best friend, the black sheep, was nowhere to be found. He inquired to the master about it several times, but was ignored. After another night had passed, the boy decided to go looking for his friend on his own. He left his quarters in the middle of the night and carefully searched many rooms until he found a stairway with the pale orange glow of firelight cast upon its walls. He cautiously entered and descended the steps. The sounds of shears snipping away, again and again, echoed up the stairwell. Against the wall, he could see the shadow of his friend being held by a rope as two of the master's men sheared his wool, each one taking turns saying the magic words and shearing it again as soon as it grew back. The boy worked up the courage to peek in. He could see the black sheep, his skin trickling blood onto the dirty floor from the constant shearing, bales of his rich wool stacked up to the ceiling behind him. The black sheep's eyes glinted in the firelight as he looked up pleadingly at the boy. He seemed to gaze all the way into his soul. Frightened of being caught, the boy ran back to his quarters and hid under the covers, where he fell asleep. The next morning, the master came to the boy and said, "My boy, you must sell me your sheep. If you do, you will never have to leave this castle. In time, I will give you a noblewoman for a wife, and you will be my heir to this throne. And someday, when I'm gone, you will be the master of this land. With this fine wool, our riches will never run out." The boy's mind raced with possibilities. He had always been so poor, but no more. Never again. He would have a wife and children who would grow up in the lap of luxury. The boy hesitated, concerned for his friend. "Will you treat the sheep well? Say it, my boy, and this city will be yours." In a hushed voice, the boy said, "He is yours, master." Just then, a great wailing boomed through the halls of the castle so loudly that it shook the walls, causing them to begin to crumble. The boy knew he had done wrong. His eyes were frantic as he looked over his shoulder for just a moment, catching a glimpse of the roaring flames shooting out from the windows of the castle behind him. The wind blew tears from his eyes as he realized how wrong it was. The once gentle beast never asked for this, and now it comes for him, seeking revenge.
A very special thank you to Mr. Xtremes for narrating today's twisted tale. With the talents of Axeman Cartoons, they have put together an animation with an insanely dark take on the old children's story. This will be releasing individually on my next video, but to get an early view, be sure to click on the on-screen link that will lead you over to Mr. Xtremes' channel and check out the terrifying final product. While you're over there, be sure to subscribe to Mr. Xtremes and Axeman Cartoons for many more twisted tales.